यार मेरा नाम तो ठीक लिख देते। किसने बनाया है ये? A very good afternoon to everyone. Prelims exam is over now, and now people are waiting for the keys to get released. So today I have come for the CSAT comprehension. I take CSAT comprehension specifically, and people must be waiting that what should be the correct answer for a lot of passages. So I will give you a brief description about how was the CSAT exam. So when I analyzed CSAT paper, what I found that reading comprehensions were moderate to tough this year. Even if it looks like easy initially, but when we look at the options of all the questions, then they were little tricky. And more than one option looked very lucrative. Two of the options were looking similar. So these kind of problems would have been faced by the students. I know that, right? But then we can only assume that which are the important and the most accurate options of all the questions. But then UPSC key will get released, then only we'll be able to match exactly. But I think some of these CSAT comprehensions were quite doable, and there were some questions which were actually very confusing, right? But through all these strategies that we have to put in the CSAT comprehension, without wasting the time, I will be discussing all the questions with you. So the first question, I am taking set A first of all. I should mention this is set A that we are taking, right? And also you also don't take any other set. So first I am telling you about set A, passage A, maintaining an ecosystem just to conserve biodiversity. I will also be telling you how you would have seen the question, okay? Maintaining an ecosystem just to conserve biodiversity will affect its commercial potential as well as livelihoods dependent on the ecosystem. There is also a conflict between using an ecosystem only for livelihoods and for the commercial exploitation, or strictly for conservation. Deforestation caused due to the commercial exploitation will lead to indirect harm like floods, siltation, problems, and microclimatic instability, apart from adversely affecting livelihood dependent on forest. These conflicts are particularly acute in developing countries where the dependence of the people on the ecosystem is significant, and commercial exploitation has the potential to boost national income. Now, the question, the essence of the passage is that there is a tiff between the two things, whether to exploit or use the resources that we have or to just conserve it. Because if we are not going to conserve it, then what will happen? Then the degradation will happen of the environment, environmental degradation will happen. And if we are not going to use it, then how the GDP will grow? So there is a tiff. That is the whole essence of the passage. Okay, the whole essence is this: that whether to use the resources or to just conserve it and park it aside. So what to do? There is a confusion between them. Which of the following statements reflects a critical message? The answer that you have to give is about critical message conveyed by the author of the passage. The A option says conservation of biodiversity is not an issue to be worried about when some people depend on ecosystem for their livelihood. Not at all. Is it saying the essence? Is it telling the essence of the passage? Then commercial exploitation of forest goes against the fundamental rights of the people dependent. There is nowhere mention about the fundamental rights. This is how you have to eliminate whether they have talked about any fundamental rights. This is something we know, but this is not mentioned. You don't have to go beyond the passage. This is what I have been telling in my sessions also. Do not go beyond the passage. So fundamental rights nowhere mentioned. C, sustenance of livelihood and degradation of ecosystem while being together exacerbate one another, leading to conflicts and imbalance. Yes, this is somehow telling that yes, that using the resources and not using the resources is somehow creating a kind of a confusion and imbalance. Let's see this. The first, commercial exploitation of ecosystem should be completely stopped. This is extreme statement, and I've told many times you should avoid extreme statements, right? So eliminating all of them, the only option left is C. I know the language of C option is little difficult, right? Using the words like exhiberate, right? But then this is the telling the whole essence. So first question, set A, the answer is C. Next. Okay, so you're going to get 2.5 marks if this is correct. Please give yourself 2.5. I also want people to interact with me in the live session. Now, second is with reference to above passage, the following assumptions have been made. No country needs to depend on ecosystem to boost national income. We can't make a judgment like that, right? That no country needs to depend on ecosystem. This is not the option. Resource rich countries need to share their resources with those of a scant. Scant means having very less. Scant means less. I know the vocabulary this time in UPSC CSAT was difficult, right? For more than mediocre it was, and using the word like exhiberate, scant. There were a lot of words I found in the CSAT paper. So scant means less resources, so that to prevent the degradation, there is nothing which has been mentioned similarly on this pattern. So the only option left is D. This is also wrong. This is also wrong. Next, passage 2. The history of renewable energy suggests that there is a steep learning curve, meaning that as more is produced, cost falls rapidly because of the economies of scale. Now, this is referring to your GS economics, right? A little bit of understanding is required of economics, and even if you don't, then a little bit of superficially you should know what is economics, economies of scale, and learning by doing. The firm's green innovation is path dependent. Now this passage I call it as difficult. I'll count this passage as difficult because there are some confusion in the options as well, right? I'll be also telling which is the easy passage and difficult passage and which one is ambiguous. So we'll be keep on discussing that too. So economies of scale and learning by doing. The firm's green innovation is part dependent. The more a firm does, the more it is likely to do it in the future. The strongest evidence for this is the collapse in the price of solar energy, which became about 90% cheaper. This, which became 90% cheaper during 2010s, repeatedly beating forecast, moving early and gradually gives economies more time to adjust, allowing them to reap the benefits of path-dependent green investment without much disruption. A late and more chaotic transition is costlier. Now, what it is saying? What is the gist of the passage? The passage is talking about renewable energies, and renewable energies are getting cheaper. And how they are getting cheaper? By adjustment. Which adjustment they are taking? They are taking path dependent adjustments, right? So path dependent has been mentioned here, but there is also one important thing which they have told, that they have given time to the green technology for renewable energies to get their own time to settle down without disruption, and they will themselves get what? They will adopt such changes in themselves that will get cheaper and cheaper, right? So this is the whole gist of the passage. If I have to underline the important terminologies here, green, renewable energies, they are talking about steep learning curve, cost falls rapidly, right? These are important terms. The strongest evidence for this is a collapse in the price of the solar energy, which became 90%. They're talking about solar energy specifically. This is also you have to mention. Moving early gradually gives economies more time to adjust, allowing them the benefits of path dependent investment without much disruption, right? This is the whole passage. Now, coming on to the option, economies of scale is essential for transition to green growth. Economies of scale is essential. There is nothing that has been mentioned that this is essential. When there is a certain terms like essential, this is not going to be your answer. Why? Because nothing has been mentioned regarding this in the, see, economies of scale has been used, right? Economies of scale has been used. Do not get trapped in that. Economies of scale word has been used, but whether this is making sense, option A. So economies of scale is essential for transition. There is nothing that has been mentioned that whether it's essential or it's not essential. Okay. So first is wrong. Modern technological progress is intensely linked to part dependent innovation. Intensely, again extreme, right? Not at all. Countries with large economies are in a better position. There is no mentioning of any country, or there is no comparison between country. The only option left is timing plays a crucial role in the case of green technological development. Okay, timing plays a crucial role, and they've also talked about the renewable energy. Renewable energies are come under green technology. So the only option left is D. This is giving the central idea of the passage. Right. Moving on to next quickly with a reference to above passage, the following assumptions have been made. Part dependent green investment will eventually most likely benefit growth as well as public finances in the country. See, according to me, the first is wrong. A lot of people will say assumptions में ये होना चाहिए, but according to me, there is no mentioning of India and there is no mentioning of uh, public finances in the country. So I have to stick to the passage. I might know something beyond the passage as well, but when the passage is not mentioning that particular thing, I am not going to buy that point. So the first option I'm not taking. The second is, if other green technologies follow the same pattern as that of solar energy, they will be most likely. Now, assumptions are like most likely, it can happen, definitely, that is the essence. Most likely be an easy transition. I'll go with B in this, right? Question number 4, B is the answer. A lot of times you will also find that a lot of people will say C is the answer, but according to me, B should be the answer because there is no mentioning of public finances. Okay, quickly moving to question number 11, set A. Where is the passage here? Okay, so passage is missing here in the slide. So I have to read the passage from here only. This is question 11. Question 11, I am reading the passage here. Each state in India faces a distinctive set of challenges regarding the impact of warming, but also offers its own set of opportunities for reducing emission depending on its natural resources. For example, coastal states need to take action to prevent or protect their shores from sea level rise, districts that are drier need to prepare for variable monsoon precipitation. Himalayan regions have their own unique challenges in selected parts of the peninsular India, and offshore areas offer great opportunities for harnessing wind power. These various aspects need to be considered for developing clear and sustainable goals for the future. Which one of the following statements best reflects the most logical, rational, and pragmatic message conveyed by the author? Now, what is the essence? First, tell me the essence. What is the essence of the passage? So, they're talking about the state, right, which faces a distinctive challenges regarding impact of warming, etc. Now, what they are saying that the state should have different kind of mitigation strategy based on their topography. Now, something which is applied in the plains cannot be applied in the coastal area. Something which is applied in coastal area cannot be applied in the Himalayan areas, right? So the each state have to have what different set of strategies. One size doesn't fit all. This is the whole idea of the passage, right? So which one of the following statement best reflects the most logical, rational, pragmatic message conveyed by the author. So the first option is mitigation and adaptation. So the options are written here also, right? This is the question number 11. So I'll be reading out from here only. Mitigation and adaptation strategies to address and tackle the climate change is essentially the responsibility of each state. Whether they have mentioned that whether they has to be responsibility of each state, there's nothing has been mentioned like that, right? B is India is too diverse to implement any effective strategy. Completely no. It is basically the responsibility of union government. Completely no. Only through elimination you will get to the answer. D. By the facts also the answer is D. By the elimination trick is also the answer D. India needs to formulate effective climatic change mitigation and adaptation strategies at the state and regional level. Why at the state and regional level? Because state itself knows their own problems, and then when state knows their problem in a better way, they can formulate the strategies also in a very better way. Okay. The next question that we are going to move on to is the 12th, right? This is the second part of it, right? How many options 11th is having? Okay, 11 is having two options. Okay, so 12th is saying, with reference to the passages, the following assumptions have been made. Green energy production can be linked and integrated with climate change mitigation and adaptation strategies. Green energy production can be linked to integrated with climate change mitigation and adaptation. There is no mentioning of green energy production. Have they mentioned that? Effects of climate change are much more severe in coastal mountain. No. D is the right option. Clearly, we can see that without any doubt. Okay. Next, moving to the passage, question number 13. So they also have two parts, 13 and 14. So we'll quickly read that passage. If the social inequality is most acutely felt social problems in India, insecurity more than poverty is the most acutely felt economic problem. Now you have to read the statement again, right? Why? Because statement in itself trying to confuse you, right? If the social inequality is most acutely felt social problem in India, more than poverty, you have to wait, is the most acutely felt economic problem. Besides those below official poverty line, even those just over the poverty line are subject to multiple economic insecurities of various kinds due to the wealth, health risks, market fluctuations, job related uncertainties. Many government policies are actually intended towards mitigating these insecurities. So what is the right answer? So now they are trying to emphasize that we have been only thinking about the poverty is the insecurity, but insecurities can also lie for the people who are above the above the poverty line, maybe because of their risks dependent on the health, etc., insurance. So anything could come under that under that term, insecurity. So what is the essence of the passage now? So the essence is which one of the statements best reflects the critical message. Now you have to tell the critical message. So there is term that you have to understand, poverty and insecurity. So they are saying that insecurity can be of various ways. It is not that insecurity can be of the income only. It can be because of various risks that people face at their different levels, right? So India's political executive should be aware of, yahin se start hoke it is saying no. Why? There is no mentioning of political executive should be aware that poverty and social inequality and consequent sense of insecurity is a main social problem. Nothing mentioned like that. In India, poverty is the primary reason for social equality and insecurity. No. Poverty and social inequality are so intricately linked that they pose an unimaginable crisis for India. Insecurity more than poverty is the main economic issue that the government policies must address. This is the most balanced message that I can find amongst all the options that are given in the passages. So question number 13, the answer is D. Okay. Now quickly moving to next part of it. Okay, they have multiple questions under it. So the 14th is saying with the reference to the above passage, the following assumptions have been made. People above the poverty line also are prone to suffer from anxiety about the economic insecurity. What do you think? Question number 14, right? Do you think that people above the poverty line, yes, they also suffer. There's a different way of suffering, but they also suffer. That is the whole essence of the passage, right? This is the main actor, insecurity. Then second is eradication of poverty can result in peace and social equality. This we cannot assure. How can we assure eradication of poverty will result in peace? Because this is the whole essence, that even if you remove the poverty, there are other sets of insecurity which are building up for the different set of people. So you cannot assure that. So B is not the option. The only option which ticks to me is A. A is the right option of question number 14. Please mark. Now read the following two passages and two passages. Read the passages and answer the items that follow the passages. Your answer to the item should be based on, okay. Passage 1. Okay, so now this is again related to CAGR. One of the dismal realities of the agriculture sector. Now, this is of the agriculture sector. They are sharing something. In independent India has been that it never experienced a high growth phase, unlike the non-agriculture economy. The highest decadal growth, compound annual growth rate or CAGR for the agriculture has been 3 to 5% in 1980s, and also after experiencing a spot means a sudden outflow in the decadal growth during 1980s. Agriculture growth suffered, it has to be suffered, relative stagnation thereafter. This is in sharp contrast to non-agriculture growth, which consistently increased from 1980s to 2000. I'll again read the passage for all of you. This is question number 21. Okay. So which one of the following statement best reflects the corollary to the above passage? Corollary means, please, you would have seen this, whether it is saying about inference. This is what I have been telling in my class always. Inference पे ध्यान देना है, corollary पे ध्यान देना है, critical message, assumption, all these points you have to mention and you have to majorly focus on. So corollary means what is the consequence of all this? What we have read. So the benefit of economic reforms percolates down more slowly to agriculture sector than in other sectors. Can we say, can we make a judgment like that? First of all, tell me the benefits of economic reforms percolate. Whether they have mentioned about economic reforms, first of all, let me know that in any way. We know that economic reforms were there, but whether they have mentioned, let me know that. Okay. So B, I'm not coming on to the right option as of now, right? I'm just assuming. For India, the green revolution was not as useful as it was expected to be. Nothing mentioned. First cross B. C is India lagged behind other countries adopting mechanized and modern farming. Why there is a mention and even the comparison between India and other countries? Because there is no mentioning of all these points that there is a comparison between India and other country. I'll not go with C. D is rural to urban migration resulted. Not at all. It's vague, out of the context. Only option left is A. So through the elimination, I try to bring to the right option, which is A. The benefit of economic reforms percolate down more slowly to agriculture sector. Why this point? Because there is a mentioning of this point in the passage that other sectors, though they have performed well, agriculture sector has been stagnant. So can we like compare between the two sectors? Yes, right, we can make such kind of statements. So A is the right option. Now with the reference to the passage, the following assumption have been made. Now you have to make an assumption. Okay, so the next is with the reference to passage, the following assumption have been made. The growing divergence between, is it the subpart of this? Yes. Okay, with the reference to a passage, following assumption have been made: the growing divergence between the fortunes of agriculture and non-agriculture economy in India could have been reduced or contained by. Means they are saying, if agriculture, non-agriculture economy is there, then how we could have maintained that growing divergence between two of them. So the solutions have been mentioned. First is adapting large scale cultivation of commercial crops and viable corporate farming. Second is providing free insurance for all the crops and heavily subsidizing seeds, fertilizers, electricity, farm machinery at the par with the developed countries. Which of the following are valid? Just read the passage again. Whether the solution has been mentioned, which have been mentioned in the options which are given in question number 22, whether such kind of solution has been mentioned, and if the solution has not been mentioned, then why I would say that the first and the second options are correct, right? There is no mentioning of all this, right? So the only option is D. When the solution, though they look fine, many solutions are possible, but whether they have been mentioned in the options or not, this is my whole fight. Now, this is question number 22 we have done. Now question number 23, quickly moving on to 23. In our country, handlooms are equated with a culture that ensures a continuity of tradition. This idea has become the part of the public policy framing and provides a legitimate basis for state to support the sector. But the notion of the tradition as a single linear entity is being strongly contested today. The narratives dominant in defining culture traditions in a particular way are seen to have emerged as the identities and histories of the larger section. The discounted and at times forcibly stifled identities are fighting for their rightful place in the history. Against this backdrop, when we promote handlooms as a traditional industry, it is not surprising that the large section of the population choose to ignore it, right? So passage 2 is talking about handlooms, they are talking about the traditions associated with it. Now, I know this passage also I will count in the difficult, moderate to difficult, right? Why? Because somewhere some of the essence of the passage has to be read again and again. Why? Because you cannot quickly come to the consequence, come to the critical message of the passage, right? So in the country, handlooms are equated with a culture that ensures continuity of tradition. This idea has become a part of the public policy framing and provides, now they start uh, relating to the passage with the traditions, how they are rooted with the culture, how they are rooted with the ancient things. So, and this has also been promoted. Not only that, this has also been promoted in this way, right? For example, particular textile. So we'll start talking about that it was there in the 15th century or 14th century, right? So this is how you have the public policy is also framed on such lines. Okay. So in the backdrop, what we have to tell in question number 23, which of the following statement best reflects the most logical and rational message conveyed by the author of the passage, right? I will try to mark the keywords in this. So public policy framing, right, provides a legitimate basis for state to support a section, but the यहाँ से change हो जाता है. There is a change in the passage. यहाँ से the tone of the passage is changing. This is what I have told in my classes also. You have to understand where the tone of the passage is changing. So after this particular para, the whole tone changes. But despite, in spite, I have told many times, moreover, however, right? But the notion of the tradition as a single linear entity is being strongly contested today. The narratives dominant in defining culture tradition in particular way are seen to have emerged as identity and history. The discounted at times forcefully stifled identity. Stifled means in only one direction we are assuming that culture to be, right? In only one direction. उसकी beyond हम देख ही नहीं पा रहे हैं उस चीज को, right? So this is the whole idea of the passage. Now, which one is correct in question number 23? I'm reading out the options quickly. We first of all, what we have to tell? We have to tell the most logical and rational message of this. Okay, we have to tell the most logical and rational. First is you need to free the handloom industry from limited narrative linked to preserving cultural heritage. Yes, we can give a point. B, continued state support to the handloom industry ensures, we can't say this. See how household units of handloom sector should be modernized and made an economically viable, organized industry. D, handloom products need to be converted to machine-made designer products, not at all. So D is definitely not going to be there. So to question number 23, for me, A is the right answer without any doubt. Why? Because see, continuous state support, how can you assure this? We cannot assure this. D is definitely vague, no mentioning of designer clothes, etc. Household units of handloom sector should be modernized. Not at all. A is the right answer. Now, question number 24, reading out the passages quickly for this. With the reference to the above passage, the following assumptions have been made. There is no need for the state to involve in any manner in the handloom sector. Big. Second, handloom products are no longer appealing and attractive in rapidly changing modern world. See, this is the idea that when you start to sticking to the passage, you know what is the answer. Now, since there is nothing mentioned regarding this, D is the right option. Dono he there is no mentioning of these topic though those in those the statements. So how can we say? We will go with D option. Now the what is the next passage that we have? Question number 31. Quickly move to question number 31. Okay, this is question number 31. Set A, again I am telling set A. Why? The people who are just joining in should know this is set A. Question number 31 we are discussing. In our country, regrettably, teaching and learning for the examination have been a forte, but the new demands of society and the future of the work requires critical. I'm reading out the passage again. In our country, regrettably, teaching and learning for the examination have been a forte, but the new demands of society and the future of work require critical and independent thinking. Learning through doing, asking questions from multiple disciplinary perspective on the same issue and using the evidence for building arguments and reflecting and articulation. Higher education should not either be more servant of the government policy or the passive respondent to the public mood. Higher learning is all about how to think rather than what to think. Teaching has to be reinvented. So the whole topic, the whole purpose of this passage is that the way, the mode that we are teaching to the student has to be reinvented. They have to think more from the perspective of how to think rather than what to think. We are giving a direction to all of them that this direction where you can think, right? But this is not the whole idea of the passage. You have to modernize, you have to reinvent the teaching style. This is the whole essence of the passage, and the whole essence is lying in the last few lines, right? Which one of the following statement best reflects the central idea conveyed by the passage? A is saying India does not have enough resources for promoting quality education in its university. Nothing mentioned about that. B, institution of higher learning in the country should not be under the control of government. No. C, classroom approach to higher education should be done away with. Not at all. D, classrooms need to be reimagined and teaching needs to be reinvented. This is the actual essence of the passage. This is what the passage is trying to convey. And if you read the passage very, very carefully, you would have known that this is the option that you have to take. So D is the right option, and we'll go with option D without any doubt, right? Next question number, quickly moving to question number 32. Please read out this question 32. The higher education is a constantly evolving subject that needs to align towards the new spheres of society and development in all. Second is saying in our country sufficient funds are not allocated. Not at all. Nothing has been mentioned. Whether the second option has been mentioned anywhere. Can we quickly see the question number 32? Whether this has been mentioned. In our country, sufficient funds are not allocated and education for promoting higher. What is the whole sentence? Not written here. Higher education, promoting higher education. Nothing has been mentioned like that. Okay, the second is not going to be there. Higher education is constantly evolving subject that needs to align towards new sphere of society and development in all. See whether the higher education has been mentioned anywhere. Hmm. Yes, should not either be servant of the government policy. Yes. So A, we can assume A is the right option, right? Why? Because higher education constantly evolving subject that needs to align towards a new development in all spheres of life. This is ambiguous question for me because what I'm thinking from two perspectives. One is that higher education is a constantly evolving subject that needs to align towards a new development in all spheres of life. But all is, which is what ambiguous, because how can we say all spheres of life? We can't make a judgment like that. All when extreme is coming here, so I cannot make a judgment like that. When extreme is coming, all spheres. So this is what is not right. So D should be the right option. Although prima facie, I thought that A could be the right option, but since it is written that all spheres of life, so we can't make a judgment, a general statement like that. So D should be the right option. Now the passage 2, quickly moving on to that. If there is an inequality in the pattern of population growth, okay, quickly moving to passage 2. If there is an inequality in the pattern of population growth, there is a great inequality in the food production and utilization. As societies become wealthier, their consumption of animal products increases. This means that a greater proportion of such basic foodstuff as grains and legumes that could feed humans directly is instead being converted into feed for poultry and large farm animals. Yet, this conversion of plant based food into animal feed for humans is far from efficient. Only 16% of the calories fed to chickens are recovered by us and what we eat them. This conversion rate goes down to 5 to 7% in large animals that are fed grains to add fat and some proteins before slaughter. So, quickly reading the question number 33. So, what is the essence? Basically they're trying to say that when the population the wealthy population try to go more for the animal products, then the animals has to be given the more cereals, pulses, right? And they have to so those things will be given to the animals more, not to the people, right? And since we know that how the structure works, that the energy which goes on, like from the direct resources that we are getting from the nature, and when those what we eat like pulses etc that we try to have it, so the energy that we are getting is direct, percentage is more. But when we are accessing it through the animals, then the protein or the energy that we are getting is little lesser. Why? Because transfer of energy will, the percentage will go on decreasing and decreasing, right? This is the whole essence of the passage. Now the question number 32 is saying, answer that we have to see is, there is an urgent need for the public policy to promote the consumption of the cereal based foods in a wealthier society. Huh. B is animal based food is far less efficient than the grain and plant based food in terms of production and utilization. Production and utilization. Plant based protein should replace the animal based protein. A daily diet should replace. Inequality in the food production and consumption is inevitable in any fast changing. So, according to me, question number 33, the answer should be, there is an urgent need for the public policy. I think this is not happening because there is an urgent need for the public policy to promote. There is nothing mentioned like public policy. Has it been mentioned? There is no mentioning of the public policy. So A is not going to be the answer. Now, animal-based food is far less efficient than the grain. This is the whole passage. This is what I can count on, right? This is what I can count on. Animal-based product is far less efficient than grain. This is what they are trying to say, right? The people who are wealthier communities which are trying to take the animal products, but they're not getting the efficient sufficient energies through them, right? Then plant-based protein should replace, no, not at all. Inequality in food production and consumption is inevitable. Now this is not acceptable. Inevitable in any fast changing, no. In food production and consumption is no. The only option is B. Animal based food is far less efficient than the grain. This is what that has been mentioned also. Although they have not mentioned the wealthier community or any community not mentioned there, but I think going through all the option, I think the B is the best crux of the passage. Now question number 34, quickly we'll see. Uh, the food manufacturing and processing industries in every country should align with the objectives and processes in accordance with the changing needs of the society. Second is wealthier society tend to incur great loss of calorie. Yes, definitely. They great loss of calorie. Why? Because they're not taking the proper rich food, right? So second is going to be there. The food manufacturing and processing industries in every country should align with the, no, not at all. B is the right option. Now we have to quickly move to question number 41. Okay, over the next 30 years, so I'm reading the passage quickly. Over the next 30 years, many countries are promising to move to net zero carbon, implying that household emissions will have to cut to close to nothing. A leading climate scientist reckons that at best half the reduction might be achieved through demand side measures such as behavioral changes by individuals and households. And even that would require companies and governments to provide more incentives to change through supply side investments to make low carbon options cheaper and more widely available. Now, which of the following statements best reflect the central idea conveyed to question number 41? I am not explaining the passages anymore because I have to quickly give the answers now. So 41 answer is B, right? Low carbon behavior in people can be brought about by incentivizing them. Okay. Now 42 answer is with reference to the above passages, the following assumptions have been made. 42, the answer is A. Okay. I would have given the same answers to you. I mean, same reasons to you, like I have discussed the previous passages, but because we are running out of time, so I have to quickly give the answers and analysis first, right? Now, passage 2. So this is the answer. Please mark. Supply side investments in the companies can result in low carbon behavior, right? Okay. Now, passage 2 is saying in only 50 years, the world's consumption of the raw materials has nearly quadrupled to more than 100 billion tons. Less than 9% of this is reused. Batteries of old vehicles contain materials such as lithium, cobalt, manganese, and nickel that are pricey and can hard to obtain. Supply chains are long and complicated. Buyers' risks are being aggravated by their suppliers' poor environmental and labor standards. Reusing materials makes sense. Once the batteries reach the ends of their life, they would go back to the factory where the ingredients can be recovered and put into new batteries. So the right option of 43, quickly mark C. C is the right option. Circular economy, this is also right. Why? Because if you see most of the options, they are not right. Green economy is not possible. Itself it is showing that it's not get every sector. Circular use of material sources is the only option. This is also could have been the right way if you have not got the essence. Okay. This is what I've been telling in my classes, that these are the tricks that you have to mention, right? This we have done in the passages also lot many times. 44. With the reference to the above passage, the following assumptions have been made. First, automobile factories are examples of circular economy. Nothing has been mentioned about automobile, though they were discussing something like that. Second is economic growth is compatible with circular use of mineral resources. So 44 answer is B. Though it looks little ambiguous to me, because somebody would say automobile factories are examples of circular economy. The discussion of that was there. I mean, we were discussing something regarding that, but categorically telling categorically telling that automobile factories should be the part of circular economy, we can't say like that, right? So there is no mentioning of the automobile factories categorically, so I'm not taking this as an option. B should be the right answer. Quickly moving to another passage, this which is 51. Okay, so it is hard to, this is 51 only, no? Okay. It is hard to predict how changes in the climate and the atmosphere's chemistry will affect the prevalence and the virulence of the agricultural diseases. But there is a risk that such changes will make some plant infections more common in all climatic zones, perhaps catastrophically so. Part of the problem is that the centuries of selective breeding have refined the genomes of most high value crops. They are spectacular at growing in today's condition, but the genetic variation that are not immediately useful to them have been bred out. This is good for yields, but bad for coping with the changes. A minor disease and even an unknown one could suddenly rampage through a genetically honed crop. Now, the whole essence of the passage is that how genetically modern modified crops can be very helpful in the short term gains, but in long term gains, how the plant has evolved themselves through the climatic condition changes, right? So those quick changes that they evolved, how to fight with the diseases, that will be somehow take a back seat because we have been genetically modifying them through our own needs, right? So the balance has to be maintained, right? The quickly I'm telling the question number 51, the option is B, right? Global climate change adversely affect productivity? No. Our total dependence on genetically honed crops entails possible food insecurity? Yes. Why? Because GM crops पे ही ज़्यादा depend रहेंगे. What will happen? जो climatic changes हैं, how they will evolve themselves, how they will fight with the diseases that might come. So this is how B is the right option. So please mark B is the right option of question number 51. Now, same passage with reference to above passage, its following assumption have been made. 52 right options are with reference to above passage, the following assumption have been made. Global climatic change can result in a migration of several plant diseases. No mentioning of migration. Second, scientific understanding of wild relatives of our present crops would enable us to strengthen the food security. Question number 52, assumptions have been made. 52, right? Scientific understanding of the wild relatives of our present crops would enable us to strengthen. I think second is the right option, but global climate changes can result in a migration of the several plant diseases to new areas. This could be one of the assumptions that we can take because assumptions have been there. It is saying assumptions. So assumptions, so we can say, right? Agar assumptions hai, so we can definitely say that 52, I have to again read the passage. But the global climatic change can result in the migration of several plant diseases to new areas. Yes, this could be the option because indirectly what it is trying to say is that if climatic changes, when they will come, then what will happen? There can be the spread out of the diseases, right, of the plant diseases that they are not, uh, they won't be able to fight with. Why? Because genetically modified hai, and then we have not let them what how they are naturally. So this can be one of the options. So C, for me C is the option. Yes, I can assume both the statements are correct because the extreme भी नहीं बता रहा है कुछ. Can result, can, because can is there. Should, if would have been there, I would have say no to it, but C is the right option, right? 53, quickly. Okay, passage 2. A good statements. 53 question, everyone. Set A. A good statements like any other sensible human being, learn more from his opponents than from his fervent supporters. For his supporters will push him to the disaster unless his opponents show him where the dangers are. So if he is wise, he will often pray to be delivered from his friends because they will ruin him. But though it hurts, he ought also to pray never to be left without opponents, for they will keep him on the path of the reason and the good sense. The national unity of free people depends upon a sufficiently even balance of political power to make it practicable for the administration to be arbitrary and for the opposition to be revolutionary and reconcilable, right? So which of the following statements best reflect this? So basically, this is more of a, see, this is the option, this is the passage which I can say it's a difficult one. 53 by, look at these statements, look at how the words have been jumbled up, look at how uh, the people who are very good at reading only can understand this passage, because this is very very confusing, right? This I'll categorize in very very difficult passage, right? So 53, so let's look at the option, that what options are telling. So uh, without opposition parties, the administration and the democracy gets to become more responsible. B is democracy needs to have revolutionaries in opposition to keep the government alert. C is rulers in the democracy need the support of opposition for their political survival. In democracy, the opposition is indispensable for the balance of political power and good governance. Now, first is wrong, because without opposition party, the administration democracy gets to become more responsible. There is nothing mentioned which has been mentioned regarding this. So A is not. Democracy needs to have revolutionaries, not at all. Rulers in democracy need the support of opposition for their political survival. No. D, in a democracy, the opposition is indispensable for the, yes. This is a balanced answer. According to me, D is the right answer because this looks balanced to me. Simple. Through the elimination only, I have categorized what is the right answer. With a reference to the above passage, the following assumptions can be made. Now, what is the assumption? In a democracy, a strong opposition is required only if the head vague. So, just by looking at the options, you can say question number 54 vague. The second is the more aggressive the opposition, the no, not at all. These are right option. Quickly, these are right option. Now, coming on to next passage, set A, we are on 62 question, 61 and 62. This is the right option. This is the right. No? So last 3-4 passages we are left with. Guys, just look at the option. I'm just mentioning again and again. This is set A. Set A, question number 61. We are on to set A. Okay. So the next option is there has been no democracy that has grown economically without corporate capitalism. It helps in modernizing the economy and enabling the transition from rural to urban, right? And agriculture to industry and the services which are inevitable with growth. It generates jobs, and there is no other way to fix a country's unemployment challenge without a further impetus to private business. Big companies can operate on a larger scale and become competitive both domestically and externally. A vibrant corporate capitalist base also leads to additional revenues for the state, which are in turn can be used for the greater welfare of the marginalized and crafting a more level playing in terms of opportunities. So quickly moving to which one of the following statement best reflects a critical message. It is asking for the critical message, right? Corporate capitalism is more important for economic growth of the state and also for the democracy. Corporate capitalism is imperative for a modern state to achieve its political objective. Imperative. No state can ensure its economic welfare without, not at all, this cannot be the essence. Corporate capitalism and democracy have the mutual dependence for their continued existence. No, we cannot say mutual existence. The only option which looks fine to me is A. Corporate capitalism is important for economic growth and state and for democracy. This is what the whole essence of the passage is, that you have to mention that. I will again reading out the passage for you. This is also I can put it in difficult passages only. There is no democracy that has grown economically without corporate. So it is trying to emphasize on corporate capitalism. Simply, it is saying that democracy cannot thrive without the corporate capitalism. Simple. So democracy can thrive with the capitalism. Corporate capitalism is one of the essential part of it, not the only part. That you have to understand. Okay. So and agriculture to industry and services which are inevitable, matlab, without it, inevitable means we cannot go without it. This with growth, it generates jobs, yes. No other way to fix countries unemployment challenge without the further importance to private business and operate on a large scale, become competitive both domestically, yes. Yes, A is the right option for this. With a reference to above passage, following assumptions have been made. Corporate capitalism promotes the growth of the labor force and provides more employment. Now, they are saying assumptions. Now, when they're talking about the assumptions, you have to go with this, right? Assumptions means that what you can infer, what you can assume through the passages, right? And it does not have to be very, very strict. It has to be very generalized. Now it is making a general statement like corporate capitalism promotes growth of labor force and provides. Yes, this is what it is saying. That more opportunities, growth will be there, right? Poor and marginalized section of population are benefited definitely through the trickle down effect. Yes. So C is the right option of this. Go with C. Question number 62. C. Which one of the following statements reflect the best explanation of the above passage? It emphasizes the inability of state to enforce its will in practice against its opposition of certain groups. It is cooperative organization of the promotion of the well-being and the development of the personality of its member. It takes individual out of state of isolation. Now, I will put this in ambiguous part. Now, this is ambiguous. We have to see. I think there's a missing. There has to be a question. This is not a part of it. I think question number 63 passage is not mentioned here. While you can just settle down, I'll quickly tell you question number 63. Passage I'll read out for you. Now question number 63. Quickly I'll be reading because it's not mentioned here. Okay. There's a very short passage. A network of voluntary associations stands as a buffer. See, voluntary associations means that if I want to associate with someone, I have to take an initiative, which is voluntary in nature. Means it is not imposed. It is my call to whether to associate with somebody or not. It acts as a buffer between relatively powerless individual and potentially powerful state. So this is a very, very short passage which came, and I have to be very, very I have to think in a very different perspective, right? I call this question as ambiguous. Why? Because according to me, there could be two answers of it, right? Which one of the following statement reflects? if I would have been there at your place, I would have left the question so that negative marking would not have been there. Which one of the following statements reflects the best explanation of the above passage? It emphasizes the inability of the state to enforce its will in practice against the opposition of certain groups within it. B is saying it is a cooperative organization for promotion of well-being and the development of a personality of its member. C is it takes individual out of state of isolation and gives them a chance to participate in a common endeavor. D is it permits the citizen to have a variety of loyalties and allegiances. So I think there is no mentioning of the loyalty and allegiances, and the balanced answer to me looks C. It takes individual out of state of isolation and give them chance to participate in common endeavor. But then I still have to wait for the UPSC official key, because that is what, because there are two ways of looking at it. So according to me, it should be C. But nevertheless, we should move on to the next topic, which is your question number. Next passage we are having is question number 71. Right? This has been mentioned here also, but it's okay. I'll be reading out from here. A single number for inflation is an aggregate across different commodities and services. The price rise differ for different items of consumption. The single number is arrived by assigning weights to different commodities and the services, and for WPI, the weights in production are used. For CPI, the consumption basket is used, but the people are not homogeneous. The consumption basket is vastly different for the poor and the middle classes and the rich. Hence, the CPI is different for each of these classes, and the composite index requires averaging the basket. Which one of the following best reflects the most logical, rational, and crucial messages conveyed by the passage? First option, we must use WPI exclusively, not at all. The option B says the present calculation of inflation rate does not correctly measures the price rise of individual item and commodity. C, inflation data under present services in the consumption basket. D is knowledge of inflation rate is not really of any use to anybody in the country. So D I'm not going with. Vague. A is vague. C is also saying inflation data under present services in the consumption market. There's no mentioning of the services as of now. So B looks like fine to me, because the present calculation of inflation rate, the whole essence of the passage is that the correction, the way they are mentioning, the way they are calculating is not right, right? So this is what the essence of the passage. I'll go with option B. So question number 72 it is. The right answer is B. This is not right, this is not right, this is not right. The right option is B. 71. Please guys, 71. Question number, I'll again say it is 71 only. Yes, 71. Okay, now coming to 72. Next passage. Trust stands commonly defined as being vulnerable to others. Entrepreneurship implies trust in others and willingness to expose oneself to betrayal. Trust in export system is the essence of globalizing behavior. Trust itself emerges as a super commodity in the social market and defines the characteristics of goods and services in the global market. Trusting conducts also means holding others in a good system, good esteem. I'm sorry. Trusting conduct also means holding others in good esteem and an optimism that they are or will be competent in certain respects. Which one of the following reflects the crux? Trustworthiness cannot be expected in entrepreneurship, not at all mentioned. It's saying that you have to trust, although we have the risks associated with the trust itself, but we have to trust when we are in entrepreneurship position or in a system, then we have to trust, but also the risks are associated with it, right? B is trustworthy. People are the most vulnerable people. Not at all. No economic activity is possible without being exposed to betrayal. Not at all. D, trust is important though it entails risks. D is the right option. D is the right, clearly, D is the right option. Now 73, now that's all. Let me check this is the last passage or not. Yes, this is the last passage. So the whole crux that I want to tell you, that this time the passage were a little difficult, no doubt on that. Some of them were very, very easy, but somebody who is sitting in that pressure in that whole environment and then solving these passages, is more difficult, no doubt about that, and no doubt that you guys have done wonderful. But it's very easy to say it after that, that this is easy, this is difficult. But hats off to the people who were sitting in the prelims examination and solving these passages. Passages were definitely on moderate to difficult level. And if you have solved this, I hope that you will be able to get the maximum out of it. Thank you so much. And please do check your keys and wait for the UPSC official key to come. And then only we can say that we are 100%, 110% correct.